This work? Yeah, okay. Well, hello, folks. Thanks for having me here today. I'm probably a little different and probably less educational than most of the people talking here today. But first off, when I left the house at 6 this morning, I forgot to bring my reading glasses. So I want to give thanks to Pioneer Title for their cheap little reading glasses here. Um, so yeah, I've always felt like I was supposed to live an alternative life. And it started back when I graduated in 79 in Western Colorado. And that summer, I got a job helping a friend build an adobe house. And me and my other friend's job was to pour the blocks all summer. So we had all the molds and we'd pour a set in the morning and then pull them and roll them and all that. So that was what got me kind of started. And then, life moved me. I was in the Army for a little while and went to college and got married. And next thing you know, I was looking at doing something else in my life. And I found this solar retrofit program. It was called at Colorado Mountain College in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. And that's where me, the solar dude, standing there. We were checking out reflectors and experimenting with them to see if they would produce more power. And that was also the year I graduated in 1987. That was also the year Reagan dropped tax credits on solar. So as I was headed out into the world looking for a job, everyone was kind of going out of business. So, which I'm not a real proponent that the government should be supporting anything, even solar. And it all really led to is these really abusive, worthless solar hot water heaters they were putting on homes back then that were $20,000-$30,000 that'd save you about $5 a month. And most of them are broke down. I does anyone even know where any of them exist anymore? They're just phased out. They're awful. So, and solar electric was really expensive back then. We at school did some pretty cool projects putting solar electric on remote cross-country ski cabins, which was a lot of fun. But that's a very good use for them back then when it was $5 a watt for solar. But where you had no way you could get to electric power, it made a lot of sense. And but anyway, I couldn't really find a job doing this, so we ended up moving to Montrose, Colorado. Bought a piece of property up at 8,000 foot. And built our off-grid house up there and needed to make some money for our own solar and stuff. So I started selling solar to my neighbors. And there were these used solar panels that were on the market that were from the Carrizo power plant in California that they dismantled. And at that point, you could buy these panels for $350 a watt, which was the screaming deal. And that's them in the middle picture there. They came in sets of 3 and they'd put out 110 watts. And so I was talking to all my neighbors up on Dave Wood Road where we lived, and they were all sold on the idea of having some electricity. But they would all come back to me. It's like, yeah, can you put me a system together for I don't know, like $500. So I'd order one set of these panels. They cost like $350. I'd go to Sam's Club and I'd buy these 2 6-volt lead acid golf cart batteries that were like $35 a piece. I'd get them a controller. I would go down to Reclam Metals in Montrose and I'd start pulling wires out of their scrap pile and buy it by the pound. So I have wires to wire everything together. And that's what we called the Dave Wood systems. And they worked pretty good. Everyone was happy. At least they had solar. But those panels in the middle there are still working today. In fact, that picture there is behind our RV where we're living right now. And I figure they were probably close to 20 years old before we bought them. And then that was 30 years ago. So those things are pushing 50 years old anyway. And they still produce what they produced when I bought them. So those who tell you that solar's got a real limited lifespan, I have to just argue, because I've never seen, unless there's something physically wrong, like somebody puts a rock through one or something, panels just seem to run on forever. And so that was then $350 a watt. That was the killer deal. When we moved down here, I bought those two panels on the side. They had them on sale. I think they came out to be about $1.25 a watt. They're 110 watt or 100, I think 150 watt panels is what those are. And I thought that was a pretty good deal. Once we got moved down here, I found some used panels that were on the market or in Craigslist or something. I think they were 35 cents a watt. And a friend of mine has ordered a pallet of brand new Canadian solar panels that were delivered to his door down here for, I think it turned out to be like 38 cents a watt. So solar has gotten very, very cheap. And I'd have to argue that why would you even bother with the power company? And I also figure with if you include inflation into what into this whole thing, I think solar is practically free now, so. But anyway, we built a house. Let me try this again. Oh, wrong way. That's the same ones. What the heck? There. So we built a house. So we moved out there into Ouray County. Here's where I'm going to veer away from a lot of people. But like I said, built an adobe. I was kind of had these plans for this little adobe house we were planning on building. So I went up and talked to the county, Ouray County, and introduced them my idea. And the county guy there is like, yeah, we could probably work with you on that. But we got some other things. Now we had saved up $5,000 for our builds back in the late early 90s, which you got to remember $5,000 was more than it is today, but still we had $5,000. And I talked to the county guy and he's like, so first off, you got to fill out this form for your building permit. It's like going to be $1,500. And then we got to have you do this permit. It's kind of like a environmental impact study that you have to do because you live up in the mountains, and that's going to cost about $2,000. And on and on. Finally, he pulls out this last application. He says, you're going to like this one. I said, why is that? He goes, this one only costs $50. I said, well, what's this one for? And he says, when you sign this, you're just admitting to the county that you understand that we will not maintain your road up there. I said, I mean, I got to pay you $50 to not maintain my road. So I told the guy, I said, well, my parents gave me these, they're called star plate connectors. And I said, I was thinking of building a shed up on my property. Could I do that? He goes, yeah, go ahead. I'll let you do that for, free. Anyway, I ended up with 2 sets of these things and just kind of got carried away. So the original structure was those 2 domes with that hallway between them. And that's what we moved into as soon as we could to get out of the city. And then as my daughter came along, we needed more room. So we built that additional 2-story off the back side of the house. My wife was sewing for Colorado Yurt / Earthworks Teepees that was in Montrose. She had a home contract with them. So we built that structure there as her shop. I think technically originally it was supposed to be my shop, but anyway, it became hers. And there we were for about 30 years, totally under the radar, never got a permit for nothing. 30 years later, I'm at work up in the mountains where I worked, and my wife was home alone, and this county guy shows up, the assessor or something, and he says, he was looking for directions. My wife went out and met him and said, well, the neighbor you're looking for is yada, yada. And he goes, okay. He goes, I just have absolutely no record of anything being up here. And my wife's panicking at that point. It's all, we're going to get condemned and kicked off and everything. So, it's like, well, I think you're going to have to talk to my husband about this, and everything. And he goes, well, just relax. This guy says, I just took over this job, and the guy who had it before me just had everything kind of screwed up. He goes, let me get some measurements and I'll take care of it. And next thing you know, we had a legitimate house that we could sell as a house on the market and everything. And that's just proof that, God watches over even idiots such as myself. So anyway, one of my bits of advice is try to do it legitimate, I guess trying to sneak around just maybe, we always had lived in the fear that they would condemn us and throw us off our property and everything. But so my first bit of advice is snow sucks. If you're trying to homestead, this is what life is like in the mountains at 8,000 foot in Colorado. And even when it's nice, it's not nice that long. So my first bit of advice, live where there's not tons of snow if you want to live off grid. And so some things we have to go through while building off grid and on your own. And these pictures that are involved with with this stuff is just of our house that we're presently building. I just threw some pictures on there. But one thing I suggest if you're starting out on your building a place is just try not to do everything. And I see that in a lot of people, a lot of clients I work with and everything. They go on to get started on their house and they want to get goats and they want to get rabbits. And we did all that. Don't get me wrong. In fact, we built our house. We barely got it livable. And next thing you know, we got goats and we got rabbits and we've got more goats and we working just to feed the animals and build pens and et cetera, et cetera. And we finished this house, our previous house up just to get it ready to sell. So we always lived in an unfinished house. Now, when we moved down here, we made a commitment to each other that we're not going to move into our house until it's complete. So we're still living in a fifth wheel trailer. But that's one of my bits of advice. So you also get into an issue where it just seems like you're never going to get done. It's a hard thing we all deal with. And how I deal with it one way is I go out and I try to do something every day, and it makes you feel really good. Even if it's just something like picking up your tools or straightening up and stuff, you just keep moving forward. And the other thing I like keeps me going on the house is I actually go out into my build quite often, and it's also fun if you're showing people around, but you can just visualize what you're building. I remember showing our house when it was just a foundation, and I'd walk around and I'd point out where the bedroom's going to be and all this and that. It's kind of fun for them because they get to know what you're building, but it also helps up here. And it's like, it's like that think and grow rich approach. If you impress it onto your subconscious will help you make it become reality. And that's because I've also heard it called manifestation. So that's a bit of advice I have. I also try to warn people, don't overthink things. Now, I hear a lot of people here today thinking a lot about their build and stuff. It gets me stalled. If I try to figure it all out to begin with, I will just never get it done. So I just start doing it. And when I get to a point that I don't know how I'm going to do it, when I get to that point, it usually becomes pretty self-evident and you figure it out. So just get out there. I heard a lady on YouTube, this one gal calls it fluid construction, where you don't really know what you're building until you get to the point you're building it, the fluid. I don't know how people build without living on site. I know some people do it, though. I know a guy comes down here from Phoenix, twice a month to work on his house. I guess sometimes if that's all you can do, you got to do it. But I suggest living on site. Because kind of this rule in life, I think it is, but especially in building, is it's always going to cost you twice as much as you think it is. So I would budget for twice as much, and it still probably costs you twice more than that. But anyway, that's the rule. So I used to also work as a snowmobile guide in Telluride, Colorado, and my boss had a sign that said, "Obey gravity; it's a law." That goes along with "Don't fall off the roof," which that was me about a week and a half ago. I fell off the 12-foot part of my roof onto a pile of rocks head first. But I'm recovering, and thank God. I could have broke my neck or something. So, but with that being said, you got to get back on that roof, right? So, which True Grit was filmed close to where we lived in Colorado, near Ridgeway. I always liked John Wayne in that movie, but True Grit, you just got to the grit to keep moving forward with your build, no matter what. And that's probably the best advice. And as hard as it can be, and no matter how bad that build beats you up, you just got to keep moving. And I think that's all I have. Are there questions? Anyone? I am. So I am legit this time around. I say thank God for the older. So when we were moving down here, I want to do everything all legit and everything. So as soon as I knew we wanted to do alternative. I think originally we were thinking of doing a straw bale construction. So I started doing YouTube, searches for what I was going to have to do to be able to be legit about this. And a guy on YouTube named Handyman had this YouTube video about the opt out. And I watched that opt out video and I'm like, really? I can just build what I want? And it was such a relief. And it's such a freedom we have in this county to be able to build with the opt out that, yes, sir, I am. So. So in Cochise County, you can get the owner builder opt out permit. It is a building permit. It basically you opt out of all inspections. So you can, once you pull the permit, you don't see anybody until you're closing the permit. And most of the times you don't even see them then. But then they come out to your house to make sure you did build it the way you said you're going to build it, the size anyway. So all they really worry about is the size. When you go to do a permit, you got to do a site plan showing them what the size of the house, where it is, make sure you're away from the wash. They do want you to put a septic in. Other than that, they don't ask you what you're building. They don't ask you how you're building it. They don't ask you, you sign a sheet that says you're going to build to the uniform building codes, but they never inspect anything that way. I'm not saying don't build it safe, but you could do a lot of alternative stuff and they don't care. So that's what the opt-out is. So, ma'am. It's Hyper Adobe. Yeah, we were actually the first ones to the anyway, the company that makes these bags. I contacted this guy. His name's Bob Fry, and I'd seen somebody building like this down in Brazil with the Chinese bags. But and I did get a few samples of those, and they were really chintzy and weak and everything. So I called up this guy in the I think he's in Minnesota or Wisconsin or something, and I told him what I wanted to do, and he's like, "You want to do what?" I said, "I want to build a house out of these bags." He's like, "I've never heard of such a thing," So, but he sent me down samples, and I found the size I wanted, and then he actually put a UV protector on them like he does with all of them now and stuff. So it's I kind of am the original Hyper Adobe guy in Cochise County anyway. So yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. We don't want to discuss that. So the house, we built our shop first. I think one of those might have had a picture of the shop. We built that in about a year and a half. And then we started the house. I think the house, we've been working at the actual house. So we had a bit of the foundation done. I think we did a row of the foundation bag around everything, all the walls of the courtyard and everything. But we started building up the walls on the house. I think it was a year ago, April. Or 2 years ago, April. So we've been at the house a little over 2 years now. So I think it's, if I remember right, it's 2,135 square feet. So. Well, it is only a one bedroom. I always tell folks, don't build a house like this, to be cheap. This is our dream home we're building. So the shop is 900 square feet. So we got a lot of space under roof, and then we've got huge overhangs. So it's a lot of square foot under roof. So, but that's correct. It's got to be RU4. But so. Well, I think they've changed that as long as you keep giving them updates that you're progressing. Yeah, they've changed a lot of stuff around, but you can, yeah, we've been at it. I think our permit would have expired if they hadn't changed it. Now every 6 months they want an update picture to show that you're at least doing something. Because some people would try to take advantage of it as a way to live in it. Because once you get a opt-out permit, you can legally, I guess is the word, live in an RV trailer on your property while you're building. A lot of people could possibly take advantage of that, is to live in an RV trailer without really building anything. So, but I think they give you as long as you need, as long as you keep progressing and making progress. So, anything else? All right. I guess I'm done. Thank you.